Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Heal with Kat podcast. My name is Kat. I am your host, and I am so grateful to welcome you back to this week's episode where I am interviewing my guest, Darlene Greene, who is a master foundational cell therapy expert, otherwise known as stem cell therapy, but we will get into why we can't really call it that on this week's episode. It's just a really informative conversation today that we're having, and I've been very open with all of you about my health journey in the last year, and I personally was very interested in hearing about the stem cell therapy through Darlene when she reached out to me. But I said, Darlene, I'm really interested in this, but we have to make this land for the community. How is this going to be applicable to ancestral healing? We have a wild conversation about the impact of trauma on the body and how it affects our epigenetics. Not only that, we talk about the technology within the patches and how they help heal your genes. And she's got some incredible information on this. Now, I've been getting really into gene, DNA, cell, health, and wellness lately for a good reason. If you're here on the Heal with Kat podcast for the first time, I have a very strong philosophy in 1 foot in the physical, 1 foot in the spiritual. We work on being trauma informed, but also understanding that we are more than just in this meat suit. We are a soul inside of this body. And what I love about Master Foundational Cell Therapy is that it meets that philosophy toe to toe in the coolest ways. You're going to hear about Darlene's story with the stem cell patches in her own life and also with her husband with Alzheimer's, and just the moving case studies and everything that's been done by the company that she works with in order to bring healing to people, mind, body, and spirit with these patches. So keep an open mind and an open heart for this week's episode. And don't forget to rate, subscribe, and review the episode if you love it, because I always love to hear how the stuff is landing for you. So with that, welcome Darlene to the podcast, and I'll see you guys next week. Darlene, I am overjoyed to have you on the podcast today. I feel like we've built a little friendship before we've been recording here today. We've been chatting for months together, and I'm really excited to introduce you to the community. So welcome.
Thank you, Kat. It's such an honor to be with you on your amazing podcast.
Oh, you're so sweet. We were having such a dynamic conversation before we started recording. And then I was like, wait, we have to stop this. We have to do this on the podcast, because people have been so invested in my personal journey with the stem cells since I introduced them to it through our conversation. And I feel like now we need to kind of like update people on how things have been, where things are. But I think it's important for people to hear your experience with these patches and how you found them and how they've truly changed your life, your husband's life, and all of that. So tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess, my husband was 64 when he was diagnosed with early Alzheimer's. And that is what led to my deep dive into what can I do to try to save his life, essentially. But I want to go back even farther for a moment and say all the way back in my early life, I married badly twice. Very traumatic relationships, not two narcissists. And I know you have Dana on your podcast talking about all of that, and it's very traumatic. So it wasn't surprising later when I found that I was diagnosed with multiple autoimmune disorders. And I had to really work hard at my health, because we all know when we have an autoimmune disorder, we're much higher probability of all the bad diseases in the world, right? Death amongst them. So I was working hard, clean diet, exercise, all the things, starting all the way back to 1996. When I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome in 99, when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and then 2005, I was diagnosed with POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia, where I would pass out. I would literally pass out. I conked my head on the bathtub once. I conked my head on a corner of a door jamb. They grounded me from driving for 2 weeks while they tried to figure out what was going on. Finally, they prescribed a medicine to increase my blood pressure to keep me upright, to get enough blood to the brain. And that was 2005. So I have had this medicine, and by the way, eat a lot of salt. Those are the solutions. Compression socks, some of these things. So when my husband's journey began, I was pretty savvy on a lot of health things, but this was a whole new world. And so we did some of the things that you and I were talking about. We did hyperbaric chamber. We did hydrogen water. We did ozone therapy. We did the Dr. Bredesen protocol, which is the only thing I know of that's actually reversed Alzheimer's. We tried everything. And we even went out of country 4 times to get stem cells via IV, placenta stem cells. And we had them through IV and injection He got them. I got them. We spent $120,000 on stem cells that year. It was going to break the bank. I was going to mortgage the house. I was going to do whatever it took. One, because the stress of being a care provider to someone with Alzheimer's was taking me down, and and I was depressed. I was very sad. My heart goes out to all the care providers that are listening to your call, because I had 4 different doctors say to me, the care provider goes first. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean the care provider goes first? And they're like, yeah, they die first. I don't think anybody understands how stressful being a care provider. And I'm like, I am too young to die. I just turned 60, Kat. I'm like, I am too young to die. So I was like, okay, I'm going to work hard on myself, but I'm going to also. So anyway, we get to a place in time. My husband is not doing well. I'm depressed. I'd broken my foot, sprained my ankle. I actually ripped a ligament. So all of my coping mechanisms, which were kind of keeping me like right here, were gone. All of a sudden, all my pickleball was gone. My walks around the neighborhood were gone. My social engagement was gone. I was in a chair. And if I asked my husband, could you bring me a glass of water? He was not capable of that. He did not understand. He was no longer really talking. I think communicating was just too hard for him. He was a zombie. He was not his personality anymore. He was napping 3.5 hours a day. It was just not good. So enter a friend of mine, actually started with my hairdresser, who said, I know you've been out to get stem cells. I've got a friend who's saying that she can use these patches to activate for those of you that are in the United States, I'm going to call them master foundational cells, because the FDA has decided that the words stem cell are a drug.
What?
A drug. And we're not allowed to make any kind of claims, even though we have a patent that shows that our product actually elevates those. Outside the United States, it's fine, and you have an international audience, so I'm talking to you, stem cells. But those of you inside the United States, I'm going to call them master foundational cells. So she was talking about this patch that elevates this master foundational cell and all that it had done for her cousin that had end-stage leukemia, her daughter that was autistic, kindergarten age, academically, although 16 years old. She had skyrocketed to upper 3rd, lower 4th grade in 5 weeks. She was no longer taking ADHD medicines. She was a whole new child. He had basically been told, the cousin had been told, we're sorry, we're going to put you on this medicine. It's going to kill you, but it will give you a higher quality of life. He had sold his cows. He was in bed round the clock pain meds, and he started patching and out of bed in 3 days, no longer using a walker or a wheelchair in 2 weeks, has since bought all the cows back. White cell counts great, living a great life. No, never did that medicine. Out of pain, unbelievable. He actually posted a really cute video. I wish I could share it, but he took it down because he was afraid the VA was going to take away his VA benefits. So he's like, I don't want them to know how great I'm doing. Anyway, so this is the friend who basically starts talking to me, and she just said, these are going to activate your master foundational cells, and I said, I'm in. I was at wit's end. I did not do all the research. I've since read there's over 130 clinical studies, double-blind, placebo-controlled published studies, and I was like, at that point in time, I'm like, I'll try anything. How much is this going to set me back? Because I was very worried about cost. Obviously, I knew what stem cells out of country cost. And she said, oh, no, the master foundational cell activation patch is only $99 for 1 month if you get it wholesale. And I was like, oh, sign me up. So we began patching. And unlike the way I would ever recommend somebody else do this, which would be to very slowly stagger your way in, because I now know people actually do have detox. And we'll talk about that later with your experience. But we just started. We started on all the patches from day one. I was just completely ignorant. All of them. There are 11 different patches for people. We started all of them, and we had immediate results. Now, you don't have to, since then I've seen just one patch, just the one master foundational cell patch can make a huge difference for people. I just wasn't taking any chances. I didn't have any time to waste. We're at a stage where if anything's ever going to help, I need to do it all right now. And what I found for my husband was phenomenal. First of all, In the first day, he didn't take that 3.5 hour nap. He began engaging in conversation. He was actually back to his original personality of funny and flirty and himself again. I mean, I got my husband back in a day, in the first week. It was absolutely mind-boggling. And then what I found is I was able to get out of pain with the pain relief patches for my ankle, which honestly, I didn't believe. I didn't believe it at the time. I know I patched and I was like, the pain went away, and I'm like, I have trouble believing this tiny little patch could really take away my pain. I didn't believe it. But you wear them 12 hours on, you take them off after 12 hours. I took them off, I crawled in bed, and within 5 minutes, my ankle was just throbbing like a mad. I mean, it was back to where it had been for 5 months. And I was like, okay, it's really the patches. So anyway, over that week, I had so much energy. We both got better sleep. I mean, his deep sleep was a huge point for me because sleep is when the brain detoxes, right? It's sort of like when it sweats. All the fluids go the opposite direction. And deep sleep particularly is critical for that. So I had been working on deep sleep with all the ways. I mean, I took a class on how to make sure we got sleep. We were getting our eyes on the morning sun. We were not eating 3 hours before bed. We had changed out the lights in the bathroom so there were only red lights at night. We were doing all the things. The room was chilly. We had a chili pad down. You name it, we were trying it. And his deep sleep was 15 minutes. 15 minutes. So in the second week, when it was an hour and 20 minutes for the first time ever, I almost cried. I was like, this is making a difference. So I loved that. And then I had all this energy. I was in the kitchen cooking, and I never had cooked. And I always thought, I really don't like cooking. But I actually thought, I think it's just I never had the energy because I was in there. I cooked more in a week than I had in a year. It was just crazy. So we both had really good experience. The neatest thing for me was my depression lifted in less than 2-3 weeks. I don't even know when. It just dissipated. So I had energy, sleep, and I didn't pass out anymore. I didn't faint anymore. I didn't need this medicine anymore. The medicine that was keeping me upright, I never used again. From the moment that I started patching, I have never had to take it again, and I haven't had a fainting episode. So all these things changed. His blood pressure dropped. All of his numbers looked great. His cholesterol dropped. His hair group, my hair group, we had all this. We looked like little baby chicks. We had all this hair growth. So it was like standing straight up for a long time. For him, his bald spot started to close in. Our hair came back darker, not so gray. Just a lot of wonderful things. And I was astonished. I get there's going to be people in your audience that are going to say, I just don't believe this. And I understand. I really didn't either. And if I had not experienced it, I don't know that I would either. But I initially began to talk to my sister, my mom, my dad, you got to try this. You're not going to believe this. So my sister had an amazing experience where she'd had 6 years of microscopic colitis. That is serious because you're not being able to sustain any nutrients. They're just flushing right out of you. And she also had plantar fasciitis and other things. 3 weeks on the anti-inflammation patch and the master foundational cell activation patch, and her microscopic colitis cleared up. And she had, for the first time in 6 years, a normal day where she wasn't have to schedule her day around bathroom stops or she couldn't make it to drop her daughter off to school and back without having a stop. Oh. So her life changed. Her plantar fasciitis went away. Her dogs also. So we take the patches off and we put them in her dog bed, and her dog's gut issues cleared up too. So amazing stories. And I began sharing. And that's kind of how I got into this work. And it's been, I will tell you, such a gift. It's been the silver lining for me at a very, very hard time. I will say that Jim's quality of life has increased tremendously, right? His interactions, his personality, all of that stayed, but he still declined with his Alzheimer's. I think he was just too far gone by the time we got started. I really wish I would have known this even 4 years earlier. I think we would be in a different place. And so as it stands, he is still declining. But he's still his personality. He's like those things that we got back stayed. And I'm so grateful for that. He's still trying to be funny, still loving. So lots of that. So that's kind of how I began to help other people and shout from the mountaintops because I was really mad. I was really mad that I hadn't heard about this. I didn't know about this. None of my doctors were. And when I went to talk to my doctors, I had 4 doctors using them. And I'm like, well, why did you not say anything? Well, it's just kind of really out there. And I'm like, this is tremendous. So that was frustrating. We actually now have our future Secretary of Health and Human Services is wearing patches. Tom Brady, the Kansas City Chiefs, Serena Williams, Michael Phelps, over 300 Olympic athletes in the Olympics. I mean, there's a lot of people wearing the patches, so they're a little bit more mainstream now. But and they're going to be more and more because they're changing lives every day. Just phenomenal.
Your story is profound and it is moving because, in these moments where you're watching your husband decline, these patches gave you a little bit of him back, it sounds like, and it improved his quality of life, your quality of life. And it's interesting. I grew up in a very Catholic family. And I always heard stem cells are bad because it's recreating life, blah, 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 blah. And like all these things, right? And I had always carried this internal belief that stem cells were not appropriate or bad, or like there was like a negative connotation. And then when I found you on Podmatch, I was just such in a different place in life that I thought, why not? Why not? I'm going to challenge that. Like, why not? And we got on the call and I was so moved by everything you had shared with me and the statistics you were sharing and the case studies that had been done and the success that you had shared with me and the pictures you were showing me. I was like, how could somebody not want to try this out? What's the worst that can happen? So I went and I did my research and I asked ChatGPT and I went on YouTube. The worst side effect that they named is that it could potentially not do anything. That's the worst that can happen. And even that, there's not enough case studies to show that there are more negative side effects to it. So I'm like, okay, so I reach out to you and we start the process. And, when we connected, I was just getting back from spending a month in Italy. I had let myself eat and drink whatever I wanted, and I could feel the effect of that on my body because before that rather, I had been doing my SIBO cleanse and I had been finding some normalcy with things, and I was finding, a little bit of hope and light in the middle of a lot of like physical dark. And then I got on the stem cell patches, and I don't know if it was the trip to Italy of eating and drinking whatever I wanted and like, or it may be that I have the MTFHR or MTHFR gene where I don't detox properly. I don't know what it was, but as soon as I put those stem cell patches on, I was getting these really intense migraines. I was very emotional. I felt exhausted. And, you and I were just keeping close contact the whole time, and you were incredibly supportive. And I can't thank you enough for like texting me at like 8:00 at night when I'm like, I'm having a horrible migraine. What do I do? And it sounds like what I was going through was a very intense detox that was fighting against maybe some incredible toxic overload in the body, because I have thrown so many tools over the last year in the toolbox of navigating my health issues. And it's like every time I think I get a little bit closer, something like knocks me down again. I full-heartedly believe in the stem cell patches after all the research and everything that I've seen. But what is the reason why I was why my experience? Like, and I ask that out of like sadness a little bit too. It's like, why? Like, why the migraines? Why the exhaustion? Why was it too much for me? And is that common?
So it isn't common. It's actually there's something called a healing crisis. There's something called retracing, and then there's something called detox. And I will tell you that I would say in 1% we see somebody who is very sensitive. And in listening to your podcast, I've heard you talk about all the antibiotics that you've had, and you've had medicines, and
birth control.
We've all had those things, and I have that same thing, that MTFHR. I have that as well. But having said that, when I started and I threw all the patches on, we had been, I don't know, 3 years into no alcohol, no sugar, no white flour, every kind of thing you could do to detox the body. we had been doing. So I was in a different state. So what's happening is when you start with that master foundational cell patch, your body elevates its levels of glutathione by 30%. Glutathione is your body's master antioxidant. It's your master immune booster, and it's your body's primary detox pathway. And so and that's actually the same amount of that's your body making glutathione. And when I would go when we rolled into COVID, for autoimmune, this is before patching, I'm getting IV glutathiones that are elevating my glutathione levels 27% for 7 minutes, half-life of 7 minutes. This one patch is elevating 30%, and it's basically helping your body elevate it by itself to its proper levels of 30% higher. And that is causing you to dump toxins out of your fat, out of your lymph nodes. And it basically, unless you pee it out, so you've got to really intake half your body weight in ounces in water. I know you're really good about water, but that also needs to then get flushed. If it doesn't flush, it causes symptoms of headaches, fatigue, emotions, all the things, right, that we see with any detox. I mean, you could go on any major detox and you would have those symptoms. Those are very common detox symptoms. So one thing we know is you do have a high toxic load. We know we need to get those toxins out, but the way we would do it is we'd vastly slow it down. That's just too much detoxing for you too fast. So we would take it down to, we have people start with 1 hour. Instead of 12 hours, we start with 1 hour on that master foundational activation cell patch and the anti-inflammation cell. And that's it. 1 hour on, 1 hour off. We see how you do. The next day, we do maybe 2 hours. We see if that's good. And then maybe we stay at 2 hours for a little bit, and then we go to 3 hours. We just slowly bump it up so that you're detoxing, you're getting it out, and then you keep going. And we don't overload the system.
What's the science behind the patch? Like, how does it work? How is it working in tandem with your body?
Yeah, it's such a great question. It's so hard to really believe even. Dr. Billstrom, in your previous podcast, talked about are all of the skin's vitamin D receptors, right? We know when we go out in the sun hits our body and our body makes vitamin D. We know that. We also know that our body makes melanin and we get a suntan. This is not surprising to anybody. This is the sun's effect on us. This is light therapy. Light therapy has been around 5,000 years. This is not anything new. And really, it's just kind of more, I would say, Eastern medicine, right? Or more longer historical ageless medicine, as opposed to our new Western medicine, which is solely focused on pharmaceuticals or surgery, unless you're seeing a functional or integrative medicine doctor, right? They don't look at root cause. They're just looking at, let's fix it with a drug. So light therapy, what we also know is if I were to look at you with night vision goggles on, your body has light. I can see you through walls. I can see you through your clothing. I can see light glowing from within you. And that is why what we're doing with this little patch, if you can think of it as a double-sided mirror, and it's made inside, it's hermetically sealed in there, so nothing is going in the body. It's actually a non-transdermal patch. That means nothing is going in the skin. That's why Olympians can wear it, because there's no drug going in your skin. So that's why there's no contraindications with any medicines. You can be on any medicines and taking this. You can be in the middle of chemotherapy. You can be with, whatever. So what this patch does is it reflects your own body's light back into you at a very specific wavelength. Each patch has a different lattice structure that's creating a different wavelength that's causing a different, activation of a peptide. This master foundational cell, the reason it's elevating master foundational cells is it's actually elevating copper peptide, GHKCU. Peptides are all the rage. They're so effective that the FDA is looking at taking them off the market because they're natural, they're good for us. So anyway, this particular copper peptide is maybe the most powerful peptide that we have in our body. It is so amazing. And what this patch is proven to do is it elevates that peptide. So when you elevate copper peptide, if you can actually go into PubMed. Anybody can Google PubMed copper peptide. And what you'll find is a 50 years of double-blind placebo-controlled studies that show the benefits of copper peptide. Copper peptide is given through 3 ways: injection, or creams, or our patches, elevating it naturally. Now, I will tell you, when you look at what the copper peptide does, it, one, increases your master foundational cells. 2, it resets the genes. And I know you love talking about epigenetics, and this is one of my favorite things about the patches, is it resets 4,200 genes to their younger, healthier state in 24 hours. The very first 24 hours that you wear a patch, so you have reset 4,200 genes because you, at least one day, you wore that patch 12 hours. And that reset 4,200 genes to a younger, healthier state. It produces growth factors, which is wonderful for remodeling and healing tissue. It improves brain and nerves. These are all in the studies. It improves memory, produces nerve growth, which is something many people were like, yeah, that's really, really hard. You're right. It is really hard. It removes free radicals from the brain. It has neuroprotective properties. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, which is huge. It also improves heart health. And I mean big time heart health. Every 6 weeks of wearing our patch, the cardiovascular system becomes 8 weeks younger. Now, when you think about it, and how does it do that? Well, partly it does that by reducing fibrinogen. Fibrinogen causes heart attacks, and it increases myostatin. Myostatin prevents heart attacks. So we've got that effect. It has anti-cancer properties, and that includes things like resetting the programmed cell death of cancer cells. Cancer cells are in all of us at all time. We all have some cancer cells, but our immune system fights it unless we have these autoimmune issues, which autoimmune issues are related to cancer, which is why I was so concerned, right? Mm-hmm. Well, one of the problems is that these cancer cells, they're like a runaway train. They just start multiplying and going crazy. And one of the things that GHKCU is known to do is to reset the programmed cell death of those cancer cells without affecting healthy cells. So I love that. We've had endless stories of people stage 4 beyond, given a life sentence of you have 4 to 6 months to live. And I'm not allowed to make medical claims. I have to say that our patches are not intended to cure, treat, or diagnose any diseases, even if they do. So they have amazing, and we know that they are actually injecting GHKCU in cancer clinics throughout the country. Additionally, the GHKCU copper peptide protects lung cells. It improves skin and hair, and it protects and lengthens telomeres. Telomeres are they're like the protective caps on the end of our chromosomes, and they shorten as we age. And I know you know this. So what's amazing is we're not only protecting and preventing them from shortening, we're actually lengthening them. And I don't know anything else. I'm sure there's something. I know curcumin is really good for protecting them, but I don't know anything else that lengthens them. And ours are actually lengthening them. So our little patch is reflecting that light, causing our body to make these peptides naturally. We're basically tapping into our body's divine ability to heal itself. So it's not necessarily the patch that's really doing the real heavy lifting. It's signaling to the body and getting the body communicating properly to begin. Well, one, when, I didn't know this, but when you're 30, half of your stem cells are no longer really functioning very well. They're like dormant. When you're 60, they're almost all dormant. So they're not working for us anymore. That's why kids heal so quickly. They get over things really fast. They're just, they've got all of these things firing. So when we have the ability to activate, and we say 1 month for every decade you are old, to get all of those back activated, we can activate, I think it's a third of the population in there. We're working on the rest. There's actually, I want to talk before we end about our new water, structured water. I know Dr. Billstrom talked about structured water and the power of that. We have a new water machine coming out that's a structured water, hydrogen water, light infused water that is absolutely extraordinary, coming out this year. Anyway, so all of these things are going into helping our body optimize its health. And so it doesn't matter if you weren't born with it. If you weren't born with it, then the patches help. I mean, I can't regrow a limb, right? I can, however, I've seen people get rid of phantom pain. I can't think of anything medically that people have been diagnosed with. I mean, disease is really, almost all disease, it starts with inflammation, but it also has to do with cellular dysfunction. So imagine if we can signal to get the cells to function properly, all the way down to the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. We are able to prove improved mitochondrial health with our patches.
Incredible, 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 incredible. I just sitting here hearing you talk about all of this, it just makes me feel, it's not in my head how shitty I feel sometimes. And it's we are being so affected by the environment we live in, the traumas we go through, the foods we put in our bodies, our lifestyles, our communities. I mean, there's so many different parts that make up our physical and emotional and mental health and even spiritual health. But, the wearing the stem cell patches really kind of woke me up to, hey, this isn't in your head. This is not in your head. And people love to say, "Oh, Kat, you're so sensitive," or don't pathologize your feet. And it's like, you know what? Like, like I am in a lot of pain, and I put on a smile on, and I try to be, and I show up, and I do this, and the stem cells really validated what you're feeling is real. And I'm really excited to wear them for an hour at a time and get back in the routine of that, because it scared me for a little bit but you said 1% of people go through that. And I've heard that before with people talking about my health issues. Well, you've got a lot of really interesting things going on, and I haven't really seen them all like this before. And it's like, I wish I could tell you why. I don't understand why. But what I do love is the highlight of the epigenetics. And I'm so glad that you touched on that. Now, I know that even in my world, with things like epigenetics, we talk about EMDR therapy or CBT, or, there is a time and a place for antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. Like, we shouldn't shame people for needing support like that. There is a time and a place for it. Even things like FCT or Reiki, like there's so many different modalities that contribute to overall healing. But why is it that these patches offer this almost miracle? Is it because of the light? Is it because of the technology? Like, what makes it stand out? And I apologize if you've already explained it, but I'm just trying to understand that. Hey everyone, it's Kat from the Heal with Kat podcast with a little break in today's episode to share with you a really exciting offering that I have called the Age Mapping 3-Day Mini Course. I created this course to help you take the next step in your ancestral healing journey with me. Whether you've just taken the Cycle Breaker quiz or you've already done a family constellation therapy session together, wherever you're at on your journey, the Age Mapping Mini Course is an incredibly supportive and informative workshop to do. In just 3 days together, we'll uncover the stories hidden in your family's past. And by mapping these ages of key moments of trauma within your lineage, you'll be able to see how those moments could be affecting you in your life today and influencing you at those same ages. On day 1, you'll experience my powerful ancestral subconscious meditation, where you'll connect with the loving wisdom and guidance of your ancestors. This is my favorite tool I've ever created, and have countless testimonials of people like you who have been able to receive love, wisdom, guidance, and clarity by contacting their ancestors and their family through this meditation. On day 2, we'll dive into the age mapping exercise and explore where certain trauma patterns or themes might be passed down through your family at certain ages. Many times we don't realize how stuck family trauma can be at these certain ages and how those ages can affect us within our lives. And lastly, on day 3, you'll geek out with me on the topic of epigenetics, which can explain the way that trauma is passed down generation after generation. It's not just energetic, it's that and epigenetic. By the end of this workshop, you'll discover a new spark inside of you, realizing that you have always had the power to grow, evolve, and become the person you dream to be. The power to become a cycle breaker has always been in your hands, and I want to help you create that magic. Let's do it together in this workshop. The entire workshop is only $35. Are you ready to dive into your ancestral stories and heal for good? Go to catdow.com/agemap or visit the link in the show notes below. Your transformation starts with understanding your past right now.
No, it's such a great question. And I love EMDR. I did EMDR, when I was getting out of my abusive relationship. I did therapy. I love EMDR. I've done CBT. I think at that time, I even did drugs because the last thing I wanted was for my trauma, my anger, my frustration and anxiety to come and to be taken out on the children, right? That was, they're already going through a divorce. I did not need that. And I was fit to be tied. So, so I did all of it. And I'm really happy to say I don't have to do that anymore. But I will say that the difference, I think, having done all of those things, and I'm still a big proponent, is that we underestimate the impact on our emotions of our physiology. I think we can sort of brain through this. So when I was sad or depressed because of my husband's Alzheimer's, the only thing that I went to was I did get back into therapy. I did some EMDR. I was like, okay, this is a basically walk myself in my head through the problem. It never dawned on me that it could be hormonal, that it could be inflammation, that anxiety is something physical that can actually be reduced by reducing inflammation in your body. When you look at the brain study, we actually have EEG images, and you can see them on my website. You can see before patching, 3 weeks later, and 6 weeks later. You can see the images on the EEG change in the brain. And what they're showing is new improved communication between the left and right hemisphere. You can see the inflammation. You can see the color mapping change and the reduction in it. You can see nerve growth. You can see these things that are affecting our emotions that we don't normally think about. Even gut health. I don't have to tell you about the gut-brain connection. Even how we eat and the inflammation in our gut can cause emotions and anger and issues. So I think that one of the things that when you have a patch that's helping you reduce inflammation and activate your stem cell healing, all of the things that are going on. I mean, I have had miraculous results with people on their gut health in just a matter of 3 weeks. Not just my sisters, but a nurse that was a friend. She's like, I don't know how to believe this, Darlene, but I took her out of pain in the moment, on the spot, with the pain relief patches. And she's like, okay, I can see that these are working. I don't really understand how this is working, but we're energetic beings. Like, we don't think of ourselves, we think of ourselves very chemistry, like we think chemistry because we think pharmaceuticals because that's how we've grown up. But we are energetic beings. We have a force field that you can actually measure. You can see it. So when we are able to tap into energy and communications and get the body communicating the way it has wanted to, and it hasn't been able to try to heal itself, wow, can you have these miraculous recoveries? And I had someone over to my house Friday. She was not able to drive. She was not able to turn her head. She couldn't sit or stand without excruciating pain. She couldn't lift her arm. She had Cipro poisoning, Ciprotoxicity. It's a black box warning, and she had it bad. She almost died. Couldn't zip up her pants, couldn't lift her hand. So when I first talked with her, I didn't know all that. Initially, I'm like, can you come over to my house? I'll patch you. She's like, Darlene, I can't even drive. I can't come to you. I go, I will come to you. I drove to her house. I patched her up. Do you know, in 24 hours, she could lift her arm this high and then in a week, she could have it over her head and actually to her shoulder blade. And she was able to move around without pain. When she was at my house Friday, she looked 20 years younger, and she was telling the story, and she got teary, and she said, I had prayed, God, just take me or bring me a miracle, because I can't live like this anymore. It is too horrible. And so she said, there are not words to thank you for coming to my house and for patching me and for bringing me this, because it has changed her life. And she was one of those people who can't take anything, because she's had toxicity poisoning. So there's no medicine you can take, right? So she was doing cryotherapy, light therapy. I didn't have to talk to her about light therapy because she understood the power of that for at a cellular level. So there actually are, there's a very famous heart surgeon who uses light in the operating room because it improves the results that he gets. So I think we underestimate the power of light in as a communication in our body. It is how our body is communicating with each other, with cell to cell, right?
Well, it's just to go a little more spiritual with it. I love that you said that we are energy bodies because we are. We're light particles put together that make up a physical matter. And, when we do Reiki healing, we're sending light from source into bodies to do these miraculous healings as well. And so we really, I think it brings up this larger conversation about how in our world today, we have been so repressed and controlled by remembering our true nature of who we are and what our bodies are capable of. We have been told that we are incurable and we there's, all these different things, and that there's only a pill that can fix us. And what I love about the stem cells is that, as you said so eloquently, it is using your body's natural, truest, authentic form to mirror that healing and heal itself. And then it builds, which is light. I mean, when you go down to physics and quantum healing, it's all about light. It's all about the speed of light and how, it's just so, just love it so much. It aligns so much with what I believe. And so that's why I was so upset when I was like, why do I feel like shit when I take these? I hate this. But I'm so excited to go back to the hour mark and try that. And the last thing I want to touch on too, before we wrap up this amazing conversation, is you touched on something so interesting. Inflammation is the root cause of all disease. The inflammation is highly trained and motivated by dysfunction emotionally. And emotions are energy. You can't touch them tangibly, but you can experience them. They move within your body. They live in different places. Bessar van der Kolk talks about this in his book, The Body Keeps Score. This is not woo-woo anymore, everybody. This is literally the reality of who you are, that your emotions are energy. They live in your body. They stay there too long. They create inflammation. The body learns to fight itself. And if it fights too long, then the body starts saying, oh, we got to pull energy from here and send it here. And we got to this is going to go out of balance because we got to push this. And so the body is just trying to keep you aligned, but things are falling off the wagon because the trauma is not being addressed. And so when Darlene reached out to have her on the podcast, I said, I love the topic, but it has to be adjacent to epigenetics and ancestral healing. And so I want everyone who's listening to this to remember the stem cells are supportive, they're miraculous, they're wonderful tools, and they are working in tandem with you doing your own emotional trauma work, like Darlene said, the EMDR, the therapy, and all the things. If somebody ever says, oh, this one thing cured me or this or that or whatever, it's all a holistic experience. So I highly recommend anybody who is on their current healing journey and they've been doing all the things and they've even come to me for FCT, or they've been like, I've been taking this or taking that and I'm not getting better. Reach out to Darlene, get in contact with her, and be one of the miraculous stories and the case studies in this wonderful therapy that is healing and helping so many people, because I know that its power is really, it's just phenomenal. And I'm so excited to hear about people's stories with it. The last thing I want to ask you is about your book. You're the co-author of a best-selling book called Become Empowered: Echoes of Grace and Strength. Give the community just a little tidbit on this and how they can get a hold of it, what it can help them with, and all that.
This is a story I didn't want to write. I was asked by Sabine to write my story of sort of the first and second husbands and the trauma associated with the narcissistic abuse, and then the journey that came finally, not looking for it, but finding this angel of a husband that I have now, who is the most amazing, beautiful human. And it was just such a gift to spend 20 years together in the most beautiful marriage I know of anywhere. Like it It was so fabulous. I'm going to cry.
Oh.
Anyway, and so she said, and then of course, to lose him to Alzheimer's, it was heart wrenching. What this book talks about is people who have been through really hard things and figure out a way to get through them and find the silver lining and make something positive for the world as a result of it. So I did not want to I did not want to write this because I had compartmentalized that, right? That first and second the experiences of that. I had a 10-year court battle in the ex-husband that was brutal and extremely expensive and very traumatic. I had PTSD as a result of my court experiences. I had PTSD where if I got an official envelope, I would shake just before even opening it because I was getting $40,000 bills from my lawyer for the court stuff a month. And I'm just like, but I was trying to protect my daughters. There was nothing more important. I was going into debt to try to figure out how to protect them, and I would do anything. So it was a very, very tough journey. And this book recaps that and then brings you into kind of current day and actually some of what I did even before Jim and setting up a returning wearer weekend program that helped reintegrating wearers, which I wouldn't have probably done if I hadn't experienced my own trauma and PTSD. I don't know that I would have noticed it. Quite honestly, I think before my own experience, I just sort of walked through the world happy and oblivious. And I think only when we've had these injuries to our hearts and souls that we even can see it in other people. So it did open my eyes and helped me in some ways pay it forward to help other people. So that's a little bit of the couches, and there's 12 contributing authors that have told their story, and they're beautifully written and moving stories. And I'm as grateful to the Patches for what they've done to my health and my mental health, my physical health, as I am to the community of this organization and its ability to pull me out of my, I don't know, I could crawl in the couch and live there crying every day if it's a path, right? There are, I could just crumble. I could go down with the ship, literally go down with the ship with my husband, or I can figure out a way to help other people, to find joy with intention every single day and not feel guilty about it, but to create joy every day and to live a life that can help other people. I've had a community around me of patching gurus that have become family and very dear friends, and everything from doctors, including a pharmacist who, by the way, calls herself the drug-free pharmacist because she is shifting to patching because she's seen more miracles patching in 2 years than she saw in 20 something years being a pharmacist. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I love that, and I love the community, and I love the patches, and so yeah, I'm proud of the book in that I wrote it, I got it done. I will not do it again. I didn't enjoy it. I don't want to do it anymore. It's not a pretty story in the beginning, right? It ends well, but it was a tough journey, and I don't want to relive it anymore, really.
But I mean, kudos to you for going through that. Maybe it sounds like cathartic process of writing it, getting it out, and sharing your strengths, because I do think that is we're all faced with that every day. We all carry some kind of cross. We all carry some kind of burden. We all have very real and valid painful things that we go through every day. And it's not to say that we should bypass them and be toxically positive all the time, but it is something to be said for turning your pain into something of service for other people so that you can give back in a way that also fills you up. And that is so clear from the moment I met you. It was like this just exuberance of love and light and wanting to help and wanting to be supportive. And I'm super grateful for you. And I know that people who meet you will also feel that way too. So thank you for sharing everything that you've shared with us today. Thank you for helping me navigate my interesting journey with it. But I really am so intentionally wanting to go back and really see what this magic is here. So I'm excited to do that. How can people connect with you, find you, work with you, learn more? Like, how can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is iamreverseaging.com. reverseaging.com. And on that website, you can connect with me and you can just say, hey, I heard you with, Kat, and I would love to talk more. I'll set up free consultations. I actually don't charge for my time to help people with this. It is my joy and passion to help people with this. So I have a day job. I actually have a day job and this is not it. So one day maybe it'll be only it. But right now, this is my passion and my paying it forward in that silver lining. But so I Am Reverse Aging is the best place because you can actually watch a 2-minute video on how this is working. You can watch an 18-minute video on a deep dive into the science. You can see how we work with veterinarians, with horses. You can put this on your pets. We really have and a lot of the science. You can dive into the studies. You can actually read the double-blind placebo-controlled studies and see them. And so it's a great. There's more information than you could look at in a day on that website. But my hope is that you'll reach out. We can talk through it. I can teach you how to get the wholesale prices. There's like 5 different ways to get pricing, and you can pay $150. Or you can just reach out to me and I'll make sure that you only pay $99. Like I really don't want anybody paying $150. That's just not, there's no reason to do that. It's just somebody's not helping you get the best prices. And so I want to make sure people get wholesale prices.
Oh, you are the best, Darlene. Thank you so much for sharing everything. We're so grateful. So
Well,
grateful.
I just want to kudos to you, Kat. Thank you for your podcast. Thank you for your bravery. I know I mentioned this before before we started. You're brave, you're transparent, you're vulnerable. You share your story out to the world. And I'm so inspired by that. I honestly can tell you 2.5 years ago, in a million years, I would not have been on a podcast. In a million years, I was the person that didn't even post on Facebook ever, anything. I think they knew I had a daughter that graduated from the Naval Academy. I had another daughter that graduated from the Air Force Academy. I had served 20 years in the Navy, but that's really all anybody knew. And so, your podcast where you're so vulnerable and so transparent and so brave, it's like, okay, this serves a bigger, broader purpose and it helps other people and you can be brave too. So
You got this.
yeah.
I've learned that there are so many people out there who are so afraid of that if we can be more of an example of how it's safe to be flawed, we're flawsome, right? We're flawed and awesome at the same time. We have to, I heard this guy recently say that the best lessons you learn are through mistakes and mistakes are through experiences. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And if people want to come on this podcast and judge me, or it's more a reflection of what they have going on and their own, whatever, so I am grateful for your vulnerability and I know it's going to help so many people. And thank you for the kind words. It means so much. All right, guys, let me know what you think of this week's episode. Make sure you rate, subscribe, and review the podcast. And remember, I give away a free ancestral intuitive reading to anyone who rates, subscribes, and reviews the podcast, shares it with me on Instagram, and I pick a winner on the last day of each and every month. And try the stem cell patches and enjoy them. See you next week.